Welcome to the Daily Beast podcast. I'm Joanna Coles, Chief Content Officer of the Daily Beast.
And I am Samantha B., Chief Content Officer of Eric Adams' Passwords. I'm his curator now.
Every Thursday, no matter what time you're listening to this, you might be walking the dog in the morning, we want you to feel like you're at a great cocktail party. We're going to capture the people and the stories of the week. We're plundering the Daily Beast newsroom, and we have two fantastic guests for you this week. In fact, no one better to analyse this week's Veep debate with than our two beasts of the week, our favourite Johns. Well, actually, that didn't sound quite right. Pod Save America's Jon Favreau and Jon Lovett. For those who don't know them, they're the co-founders of Crooked Media, and both were former speechwriters for President Obama. And Jon Lovett hosts the popular podcast Love It or Leave It.
I cannot wait to hear what they have to say about the debate. We're going to debrief it all with them once Joanna and I have done our own download. We're also going to discuss the things that we are obsessed with, such as, for me, New York City's seemingly least cunning crime syndicate featuring Eric Adams and his penchant for business class travel, and what we have just learned about Vladimir Putin's rules for his guests. Truly, Joanna, this is a podcast that will make you better at a party, minus the food, minus the alcohol, minus the weird gift bags that are always welcome.
Have you ever had a customer service experience where everything just works? It feels like we've reached a point where every customer experience should feel that seamless. And you're in luck, because Five9 is changing the entire way customer experiences work. They use AI to create smarter, more informed interactions so you can get your problems handled in a way that's more human. Five9 creates intelligent customer experiences so everything feels personalized. That's just one small part of what their tech can do. It's already changing the game for companies from Estee Lauder to CVS. And you can learn more about next level intelligence CX at five9.com/beast. But we did go to, I think, the best party of the fall last week together.
Yes, we did.
And can I say that the best part of it actually was talking to you. We were each going in our own individual Ubers, and we were like, are you there yet? How far out are you? Because I didn't want to go in on my own.
I don't want to go into a party alone. I mean, I will do it. And we ended up actually going into the party alone, and it was perfectly fine.
And it was so full of celebrities. My head was kind of spinning round. I mean, there was Kate Blanchett, there was Meryl Streep.
Yes, you have to tell people what the party was. First, you have to set the scene.
All right, I'm setting the scene. It was at the New York Public Library, which is a gorgeous building. It was covered in tropical fauna, and it was for George and Amal Clooney.
It was for the Clooney Foundation for Justice, which supports human rights. And oh, dear me, it was a fancy party. I wore the dress with the most fabric humanly possible. It was a really pretty dress, and it was a plum color because I love fall. But when I swanned into the kitchen, my husband did say, wow, that's a lot of fabric.
I think George liked your dress, though. I am going to release my photo of you talking to him, because what I loved most about the party was that everybody was trying to talk to George, and George came over to talk to Sam B.
Well, let me say that first, I saw him across the table talking to you, and then I made eye contact with him, and he went like this, podcast. And I was like, Joanna, you shameless woman.
I was shameless. I was like, George, you need to be on the podcast, because we could talk about actually all the good things they do in the world. There is a weird juxtaposition of very famous, very attractive. Did I mention he was attractive? People in the world celebrating people who are doing real work out there.
There is so much to talk about. But then he came around the table and he was like, I heard you have a podcast. And that was totally fine. But then someone snapped a photo of me talking to George Clooney, and you can put it on your Instagram. It is so embarrassing because I am literally clutching my heart and my eyes are closed as my face is turned to him like he is the son, or the son of God, really. And it looks like I'm sure that we were talking about the election, but it does look like I am praying to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
It is a fantastic photo. I'm going to put it out. You have photographic evidence that you were swooning. You were in full swoon. But so frankly was he. He seemed very keen. I think I heard him say he missed your show.
Oh.
And I think he was very excited I think he'll be excited to come on the podcast.
You know who else was swooning? The woman who mistook me for Melinda Gates. At some point.
Melinda Gates was there. She was there with Michelle Obama.
She was there, and she was kind of in my vicinity. And someone must have said to this one woman and her 2 daughters, Melinda Gates is over there. And she directed, I swear to God, I looked, she was so far away from me. I looked up, I could see her shining wet eyes just beaming upon me. And then she grabbed her adult daughter's hands and beelined for me and began a conversation with the words, Melinda, I'm so delighted to meet you. I must introduce, and she launched into this whole thing. And I felt in that moment the full force of people's need to truly adhere themselves to a billionaire.
What point did you just say? Because there is a moment when she wants to be with Melinda, and maybe it would have been kinder to just say, I'm going to give you $1 billion. You totally deserve it. I'll write you a check. Let's meet back here tomorrow.
Meet me at the postal box at the corner of, at some point I was like, I have to let because she was it was like a full launch. And I said gently, I think you're looking for Melinda Gates. And I directed her to the actual Melinda Gates. And her level of disappointment cannot be overstated.
So just can you do her face falling?
It was like, she kind of went like this.
Did she apologize? Did you say I'm Samantha B?
No, she really rambled and then just sort of turned on her heel and walked in the correct direction.
I love that story. It reminds me of a story. I was once in an airport, and I have nothing like the celebrity that you have, but I did do a couple of seasons of Project Runway All Stars. Mm-hmm. So every now and then people come up to me in the airport, and a woman came rushing up to me and she went, I know you, you're Tilda Swinton. And I said, actually, I'm not Tilda Swinton, but it was confusing because I had a British accent. Obviously, Tilda is British. And then she went, no, not Tilda Swinton. I know who you are. Cecile Richards, the head of Planned Parenthood. Thrilled to be thrilled to be mistaken for either of these two women. So I said, no, I'm actually not Cecile Richards. I do think she's done tremendous work. She went, I know. You're Tabitha Coffey.
Wow.
Who's a reality hairdresser. So finally just said, actually, I'm Joanna Coles. And she went, meh. And just walked off. There was no apology. I mean, it was like a weird guessing game in the middle of the airport.
You know, if people don't like me, but they also kind of don't know exactly who I am or why they don't like me, I just tell them that I'm Katie Couric. She loves it, I'm sure.
We're obsessed. Well, you have particular obsession this week.
I do. I'm so fired up because I'm just loving this story about New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who has been accused of the most tragicomic slate of wrongdoings. And that is saying a lot. Because as you know, I am from Toronto, where we had the original ridiculous mayor, Rob Ford. R.I.P. Rob Ford.
I'd forgotten all about it. Reminds me, what's drugs? Crack? Was it a crack pipe?
Caught on camera smoking crack and talking politics, among other things. That was not the only thing. That was just the most famous thing. So if you are not familiar with the story of Eric Adams, the Democratic mayor of NYC was indicted last week with federal charges relating to bribery and wire fraud, among other things. It seems to me like influence peddling is kind of like at the heart of all of this, and the charges are related to around $100,000 in illegal perks.
Which doesn't feel like it would get you very far in New York City.
Oh, no, not really, not particularly. There are some super choice sections about getting comped tickets on Turkish Airlines, taking flights all over the world with a stopover in Istanbul, even if it's not on the way. It's fantastic.
I think I read that he was going to Paris, but he had to go via Istanbul. At
the time of this taping, I actually think that additional charges may be being announced. But we don't know what those are. What are New York mayors? Like, we've had Giuliani, we've had de Blasio.
Yes, in The Beast, Michael Daly, one of our reporters, had an excellent piece about Eric Adams, and he said that, I hadn't realised this, that actually Eric Adams had worked for the transport police.
Yes, I did not know that either until I read that piece.
Right, and it was called the O Police because they were always too far away to get hold of anybody if there was trauma or drama in the subway. And when they would tell people they were a member of the transport police, people would just go, oh.
Oh. Oh, God.
I have to say I'm sorry to hear this about Eric Adams because he is a very jolly cheerleader for New York. And I will say, when he started his mayoralty, I had him round for dinner and he absolutely charmed everybody at the table. He's an incredibly good storyteller. He's very charismatic. So it's depressing to hear that for the sake of $100,000,
bunch of travel perks.
Yeah, that's truly depressing. And also you think, come on, it's New York City, 50 million. I'm expecting 50 million. If you're going to be corrupt, be corrupt.
Yes, when it comes to criming, it just feels very sloppy.
Did you just say when it comes to criming?
I did.
I did.
It. It's sloppy. It's very silly. Remember when he gave that tour of his quote-unquote Bed-Stuy apartment, and all it was just a basement apartment with a giant sleigh bed in the middle?
Well, some people would find that a very, well, I don't even know how to respond to that, except that he didn't live in Bed-Stuy, right?
Well, nobody thinks that he actually lived there. It didn't seem like a very lived-in apartment, but it's sort of like the jury's out on that. It is very funny to me that he had a staffer who allegedly took a bathroom break during her FBI interview and went into the bathroom and furiously tried to delete all the encrypted apps that they would do their alleged frauds with. I find it relatable. And yet, not something I would look for.
I'm sure in the FBI bathrooms, they must have cameras, don't they?
It's very sad to me that I feel like I would do crime better than him. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. It's not a great story for New York City, is it? Because all his advisors, basically the head of all the departments, seem to have resigned.
Yes, yeah.
Who's running the city?
I'm not sure. I don't know. His press conferences are very sad now. He's going into the rotunda all alone with no backup music and no people.
I know. He used to do the New York, what was the song?
Just the Alicia Keys song.
That's right.
Yep, not anymore.
Yep. So he's now walking silent press conferences with nobody with him.
That's right. What are you obsessed with this week?
I was fascinated, actually, by a piece in The Atlantic by Anna Nemtsova, which we actually wrote a little piece about in The Beast too, just about Putin's obsession with safety and how people are beginning to pierce it. And there was a dossier that came out this week from I think, funded by an oligarch who lives in Europe, which suggests that he goes to extraordinary lengths, even bigger lengths than anybody had expected, to stay safe. So anybody going to see him has to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Great.
And sometimes longer. That his kids are driven around the grounds of where he lives. They're not allowed to sort of wander anywhere, although apparently staff have been snatching photos of them and posting it on social media.
Right.
That he has a girlfriend, but nobody knows how many children they have. It could be 2 or it could be 3. He travels in an armoured train, a special train. They have their own train. And you just think, God, it must be so isolating to have a life like that.
I think so. Fun fact about me, we have a giant 8-foot painting of Vladimir Putin in our garage.
You do? Oh, in your garage?
In our garage. We keep it in. It was a prop that we had put together for a show that we created called The Detour. Years and years ago.
This was you and Jason.
Yes, me and Jason. And it was up. It was like this hilarious, it's him riding a bear with a spear. And we had it up on the wall in this mansion that we were filming in. And then we kept it because it was hilarious. And it is so huge. I will show you a picture of it later.
You should bring it and we could put it behind us on the wall.
But you know what? I had it in my office for a really long time because it was a great memory of a really amazing project.
Well, I'm sure your cars are enjoying it.
They are.
This is where I should probably tell you, I have strangely interviewed 2 Russian presidents.
You have?
I have Gorbachev when his memoir came out. And actually, Raisa Gorbachev, his wife, was really the sort of most recent first lady of Russia. Since then, the presidents haven't had really a wife that's occupied that position. And the first lady of Russia feels very different to the first lady of America. And then I also actually interviewed Yeltsin. And yet my favorite story about Yeltsin is when he came over to visit Bill Clinton and got picked up. Do you remember? He staggered out of, he somehow escaped his minders and was found on Pennsylvania Avenue in his underpants, extremely drunk, trying to hire a cab to go and get pizza. He was like, I want American pizza. And I interviewed him actually in Strasbourg years ago, and I was so surprised. It was slightly by accident. He was speaking, but I'd stumbled into him backstage because I'd taken the wrong door. And I said to him, oh, goodness, what are you doing here? And he went, I don't know. What am I doing here? Not in that voice, obviously. My accents are not as good as yours. But it was a very strange moment.
Joanna, you truly... I swear to God, every time
telling you that. That's not why I love the story on Putin, but it is extraordinary the lengths he goes to stay safe.
Every time we get together to do a podcast recording, I learn some precious gem about the world we live in. Thank you so much.
So we're now going to move on to our download. And obviously there's only one story we can really download. And I know you're very agitated about it.
I am.
And that is our Veep debate, of which the beast has been full. We had a wonderful piece by Jill Filipovich this morning just pointing out, frankly, all the lies that JD Vance was telling about not wanting a national abortion ban when we know he's asked for it and called for it and written for it.
Yes.
But I know you were agitated by it too.
I was. I woke up very agitated. I mean, of course, I watched the whole thing. My heart wasn't racing last night, but I didn't sleep. And then I woke up in a state of over-caffeinated. My pulse is racing. First of all, I want to say that the debate was held at my old studio on 57th Street.
It was?
Yes, it warmed my heart a little bit. It was fun to think of them sitting in the same makeup chair, getting their faces put on that I used to sit in.
Oh, that's so fun.
In a room previously decorated by Bethany Frankel.
Really?
From when she had her talk show. It's all white pleather. It's chrome and white pleather.
They didn't have very much makeup on, though. I did notice that whoever had put J.D. Vance's makeup on had stopped a good ½ inch from his hairline. And I wondered if they'd done that on purpose.
He, to me, looked like he was about to sell me some complex financial instrument that I don't understand, that has just like a very high commission rate that he's never going to tell me about. Just his facial expression was benign, but the lying was so forceful. Like, I think he came across as less of a peevish weasel than he usually does, but until the point when he got corrected. Which he really didn't like. He really did not like that.
Thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because...
We're going to turn now to the economy. Thank you.
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
You know what? Like, if fact checking is your Achilles heel, then that is really a tell for us that we are about to go on a voyage of lies. It was very irritating to me.
Yeah, I don't know where to begin with him. I mean, actually, I felt he was very plausible. It felt like he was nothing to do with Donald Trump, even though he talked about him. He seemed so polished, and he came into the debate with with such a lack of favorability. I feel like people really don't like him. Even Republicans recognize he's not been a good candidate. But he had a very good moment, I thought, last night. Well, I thought the whole debate was good for him. He appeared coherent and pleasant. And I almost had a moment where I was thinking, gosh, what if he gets elected and then in office becomes president? What if he just swiveled back to all the opinions he had when he first wrote his book, and he was declaring Trump the new Hitler? And, what if he... I don't know.
You mean what if he course corrects?
Yes, exactly. What if he course corrects?
I don't think that's on the menu. I don't think that's on the menu anymore because he lives in a world of grievance. I think that what his mission was, and I do think that he accomplished this, is that he was excellent at making it seem like Kamala Harris is the current president and has been for 3.5 years. But I think what his primarily driving me crazy today is that the big story today is really about civility and how they got along and how cordial they were with each other, which is really something that I despise, because who needs civility if what you're saying is pure trash?
Well, did you feel, though, that Governor Walz, by the way, I really want to move to Minnesota. He made it sound fantastic.
The Garden of Eden is in Minnesota.
Who knew? Who knew? Best healthcare.
My goodness.
I did think that Tim Walz actually missed a few opportunities to shoot daggers into JD Vance. I mean, we've got the pet story, which he's knowingly made. You know, he said, who cares if it's untrue?
Oh, sure.
I'm making a point here, which has had terrible ramifications in Ohio. Even the Republican governor has come out and said, please stop telling these ridiculous stories about immigrants eating pets. It's just not true. And JD Vance knows it's not true. And that's just the latest in his egregious lineup of lies for the sake of power. But I did feel like Tim Walz should have actually cornered him a bit more on things like that, and his national abortion ban.
I agree with that. I mean, they set expectations for him so low, which is such a not fun way to have to go out on a national stage and perform. They were all like, hey, Tim, we're not good at this. And by the way, we told everyone that you're not good at this. Just have fun out there and don't fuck this up for us, which is a really impossible mission. He did. You know, like the reason he was chosen was because he called them all weird, and that's what everybody was looking for, and we didn't receive it.
Right. Why didn't he just say it last night?
Listen, I think that a big part of the problem and why I really am reflecting so negatively on it today is because without any fact-checking, what is the point? The whole thing is ridiculous. The whole thing is BS. Like, without any fact-checking at all, the job of moderator is anodyne and boring. It is quite blank. You're a traffic cop. No one cares.
And they had a QR code on it, which you were supposed to click on, and then it would fact-check. Yeah, CBS ran a QR code. Did you watch it on CBS?
I did, and I did not. I didn't notice that.
Okay, well, there was a QR code that would pop up every now and then, which was supposed to have some fact-checking on it. But it didn't, at least for me, it didn't work. I watched it in the Daily Beast newsroom. A lot of us were trying the CBS QR code, simply didn't work.
Okay. I mean, if no one's pushing back, if no one's able to push back when JD Vance says things like Donald Trump saved the Affordable Care Act. I mean, like, we know that that's not true. It's just such a simple thing. And
well,
if there's
the first thing he did when he came into office was try and kill the Affordable Care Act.
He ran on it.
Exactly. He campaigned on it. It was extraordinary, that moment.
Yes.
But what was extraordinary was that Tim Walz didn't push back on it further.
I know. I mean, it's when those lights are upon you, I mean, this is what happens. It is not his strong suit. It is much more a strength for JD Vance. Like, we knew that going in, but it was really a frustration that they were not able to make clarifications or didn't feel comfortable making clarifications. I felt like the whole process, I felt that I could feel network notes looming over the whole procedure. I mean, listen, if you start one of these things with a question about Iran, then you don't even really want to know what the answer is to your question about Iran, because everybody just launches into their biography about how they were like born in the crook of an old oak tree. And they're like their mom was squatting in the potato fields and birthed them. And then they went to work. You know, it's ridiculous.
But the first question should have been, do you believe that Donald Trump won the 2020 election? Or do you believe that Joe Biden won it? That should have been the first question. Instead, that came right at the very end, where I'm sure most people had already left.
Of course.
I spoke to several people who tried to watch it and fallen asleep. And so the most important part of, do you accept democracy? Would you have ratified the election, which JD Vance said he would not, was left right until the end.
Right until the end, when everybody's watching Dancing with the Stars.
Yep.
I agree with you. The first let them do their let's not even pretend that we're not doing biographies. Let them do that stuff, and then literally ask, tell us why Donald Trump's former VP is not standing here today instead of you. Tell us in your own words.
Right. Like, how extraordinary is it that a president has changed his vice president because people were threatening to hang his previous vice president?
There were so many missed opportunities. I listed them.
Oh, good. Go on.
I write notes. I do stream of consciousness note-taking during debates.
Well, you were texting pretty frantically.
I was texting frantically, and toward the end, my texts no longer made sense. But I mean, really pressing J.D. Vance on the lies about Haitian immigrants that he told 2 weeks ago that were incredibly damaging actually sickens me. Like, do you stand behind the comments that you made about Haitian immigrants eating cats and dogs? Do you stand behind your comments that childless people are often deranged and psychotic? And there is ample evidence. You want a nationwide abortion ban. You've said it. You've written about it. Which version of you is real?
Right.
I actually think that I would personally, listen, I love to throw spaghetti at the wall, there's no question, but I feel like the best debate moderators would be people who don't have a job to worry about after. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you know who won last night's debate? David Muir and Lindsay Davis, but particularly David Muir.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they did do a great job.
Why also, as a moderator, would you take the job if you weren't allowed to fact check in real time?
Listen, I don't know the machinations of what happens behind the scenes at a network, but I'm sure that this was an agonizing process for everybody. And I don't think that the result was very effective. Like, nobody, they definitely asked about calling Trump, Hitler. But I mean, the real question, then there needs to be a follow-up question.
Right, and he just said, well, I was wrong, and now I've changed my mind.
The specific question is, well, when did you change your views on Trump? Because all of the stuff that he said was in 2020 when he had already been president.
Right, and also, why did you think that he was the new Hitler?
Yes.
Saying, oh, I was wrong. Well, it's pretty weird to be wrong about saying something quite so strong.
I mean, J.D. Vance has said that shootings are a fact of life. That shootings are a fact of life that we have to accept.
Right.
How did this not come up? We're just talking about heavy doors and windows. This is such nonsense.
Well, there was also an extraordinary moment where Tim Walz was talking about how his son, Gus, had been witness to a shooting at a volleyball event. And actually, it was a human moment when J.D. Vance said, oh, goodness, I'm so sorry, I didn't know that had happened. And then he went, Christ have mercy at the end, as if he was some sort of priest, That was a very strange moment.
It was. That actually reminds me, I don't know why that reminds me of this, but the abortion issue. I need someone to say out loud at a debate real soon. I need people to say out loud that abortions at 9 months do not exist.
Right.
What we are talking about is palliative care for dying infants. And the GOP needs to stop torturing people with this line of attack or this line that people are going around executing babies on the slab. And him talking about how he has a friend who once had an abortion, but he still loves her. I'm like, J.D. Vance, newsflash, you know a lot of women who've had abortions.
One in 5 women in America. Yes. And actually, most people who've had abortions are parents, are mothers.
Yes.
It's actually not the feckless 15-year-old girl, which the Republican Party presents as someone who's having an abortion. It's actually mothers who've got children who know the incredible amount of effort and energy and, yes, money it takes to have a baby.
And also, J.D. Vance, you know a lot of men who participated in the making of an unintended pregnancy.
Never discussed as a men's issue here too?
I don't know. Anyways, no one told you because you pepper your daily conversations with phrases like the blood of Christ. And no one trusts you, and they are right not to.
He appears to have no core whatsoever. So he says whatever happens to be in the wind or whatever he thinks Donald Trump will like him for saying. And Donald Trump was going insane on Truth Social.
He was. Yes, he was.
I know you're not on Truth Social, but I
be.
like to watch it because I like to know what he's saying. And at The Beast, we try and keep reports of what's happening on Truth Social because we know not everybody's on it. But he immediately, first of all, he can't stand not being the centre of attention. So I'm sure it was very painful for him to have to watch J.D. Vance.
If he was smart, he would let J.D. Vance speak for him more often. But
yes, he would.
Well,
he'd also learn what his positioning statements are.
I know. I was positive as I was watching that it was definitely bothering him and getting into his craw.
What were you doing? Were you sitting on your sofa? Were you in the fetal position? I'm trying to imagine you sitting there, firing off your texts, jotting your notes.
I sit on a big, a gigantic chair that contains multitudes. So I sit on my big chair with a snack and a drink. I have my laptop, my phone, and a notebook, and probably a cat.
And were you watching it on your own?
No, I was watching it with my 16-year-old son, and also Jason was there. My husband was there as well. Yeah. It's unfortunate, and I think that one very impactful thing is that no one can ever name their baby Margaret again.
He had do the impression of JD Vance saying Margaret.
But he said Margaret. I don't want to guess, but if I was guessing, I would say 12 times.
12
I don't
times.
know.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word. So, first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children. Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, I've been extremely consistent. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens? Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here.
Poor Margaret Brennan. She probably can't get the echo out of her head.
The way that he says Margaret is like when an incel calls women females. Do you know what I mean? Like,
just felt wrong in his mouth.
It just feels
just
wrong.
Take the word out of your mouth.
Take the word out.
Nell Scovell, who is a great writer for the Daily Beast, has a theory of why RFK Jr.'s words sound so wobbly. You know, he's got that very, very wobbly voice.
Yes.
And she says the words are so appalled by how he's put them together that they refuse to come out of his mouth properly.
Oh, boy. Okay. So who does this debate matter to? I have a theory.
Well, go on.
Well, I just think it matters to people who want some cover for voting for Trump. People who just don't want to pay their taxes. That's my assessment of it. Just people who are like, just give me one reasonable thing and I'll just go for Trump. Like they probably were anyway. But they wanted a more reasonable projection of a human politician that they could just like feel okay about.
I think the polls have got it split pretty much 50-50 for who won. The thing that struck me was that the debate itself, at least the three debates we've had this season, have each favoured the younger candidate. So Trump over Biden, Kamala over Trump, and JD, I think, just squeaked ahead of Walz in this debate. But I also thought, watching the two men last night, how Kamala has just modernized and freshened the dialogue, and how watching a woman with a man is so much more interesting than watching two white guys just going at it.
I did enjoy being Vance-splained.
Yes, Vance-splaining was a real moment, wasn't it?
It really was. I really just need someone to say abortion is healthcare 10 times in a row, and I'll be satisfied going forward.
In today's world, customer experience, or CX for short, is being completely revolutionized, and one company is leading the charge, Five9. What they're doing is really interesting. They're integrating AI into customer experiences through phone calls, text, email, chat. It's all getting smarter and more streamlined, which is a win for brands and consumers. Massive companies like Estée Lauder and CVS are already using Five9 to enable top-tier customer experiences where typically you might not expect it, because brands have seen how powerful great CX can be. It leads to higher profits, better customer retention, all types of business outcomes, which is why more brands should be looking to elevate how they engage with their customers. So if you want to know how you can elevate your CX game, check out five9.com/ beast. Okay, let's keep going on the debate coverage, but we're going to now bring in our beasts of the week. Jon Lovett and Jon Favreau, the two Johns of Pod Save America, and they're joining us for our very own spin room.
I just want to thank you so much for both being here. I know your time is so precious. This is our little spin room thing that we're doing. Did you enjoy the debate last night? What were your initial thoughts? Enjoy. I say that with quotes around it.
Honestly, my initial thought was, kind of boring. But in a good way, because it's like we were saying this on Pod Save America, that it felt like a debate on a timeline where Donald Trump no longer exists, or at least existed in the distant past. And so it was just two people. Like, it could have been a gubernatorial or a debate or a Senate debate. Tim Walz is talking about Minnesota. JD Vance is talking about random issues. It's like, it was interesting. It didn't feel like the 2024 campaign.
I thought it also looked like a debate from the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah, we're used to, in a world where Trump is a part of our politics, high highs and low lows. We watched a debate a few months ago. I would say that was a low low. Watched a debate a few weeks ago. That felt like a high high. She really kicked his ass. This was in a kind of lukewarm middle where I think JD Vance, this is his best kind of environment, like an opportunity to debate, like when he was in college. He's a poster at heart. He's an internet creature at heart. It's a good forum for him. He landed some punches. I thought Tim Walz had some of the best moments of the night, but is also obviously not as comfortable in that forum. So all in all, it was just sort of, I think, like a kind of boring and yet also hair-raising experience.
Yeah, I thought JD Vance, he put on a well-fitting normal human suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me want to move to Minnesota, I will say. Is this the end of the debates now? Are we done? Do we squeeze in one more?
I think it's probably the end. I think that Donald Trump and his campaign feel good about where they are. I think they are risk averse in that they know if they agree to one more debate, then Donald Trump could once again remind everyone why he is deranged and unfit. And it's also like, it's, the CNN debate was supposed to be the 23rd. That's the invitation for October 23rd. It's only a couple weeks. And I don't know that they're going to have time to do this. It's Donald Trump, so he's unpredictable. Anything could happen. He could decide like 3 days before the debate. He could say, yeah, let's do it. I'll see you there. So I don't know, but I would bet against it.
I wondered if he might just even debate JD Vance for the hell of it.
Do you think that each candidate met their minimum goal? Like, who do you think was really reached with this performance?
JD Vance's best moments were probably around issues that don't matter as much. The same can be said about Tim Walz's worst moments. The most important, and I think furthest reaching moment of the night was the moment where Tim Walz questioned JD Vance about democracy, and JD Vance refuses to say that Donald Trump lost the election. I think that swayed undecided voters who were watching it. I think it's the most important clip coming out of it. The Harris campaign immediately put an ad behind it to get that in front of people. And so, you have, like, if you're watching a 2-hour vice presidential debate, you're pretty engaged. And you may have seen the moment where Tim Walz kind of fumbles over an answer around mischaracterizing his time in Hong Kong 30 years ago. And, maybe that seemed impactful in the moment. They said they cut off JD's microphone. But if you're just watching clips of what comes out of this debate after, I don't know that JD Vance did what he needed to do for Trump. I think JD Vance did a little bit of work to repair his image as a weird dipshit. But does that help Donald Trump win? I don't think so. I think Tim Walz did more to help Kamala Harris than JD Vance did to help Donald Trump.
Do you think that they should have asked the question about the election at the beginning? I thought it was an incredibly weird ordering of questions, and that actually you would have had a much more engaging debate. It's probably the single most important question, right? Who won the 2020 election? And if you can't agree with that, then it's going to colour the rest of the debate. So I thought it was really weird that they left it till the end.
I certainly would have enjoyed if they asked it first, but to be fair to CBS, they're a news organization. They have a bias towards what is news and what has just happened. And so I was not completely surprised that they asked about what happened in the Middle East yesterday and what's been going on in the Middle East now for several months, if not a year. So I think that's why they started with that question. I might have then in the second or third or fourth topic gone to democracy, but I don't really have a lot of quibbles with it just because the way people consume information now, share information, you had, tens of millions of people who watched the debate last night, but everyone's going to share the clips from whatever moment of the debate was a big deal. And I think that's different than the way we used to watch and consume debates, like, even 5-10 years ago.
True. The only thing I would say to push back on that is we know that foreign affairs doesn't really move the needle in a presidential debate here. So I just thought, you way to lose half your audience. I literally thought if you're trying to get people to watch this thing, the way to lose them is to start with the Middle East.
That's fair.
Yeah. I want to ask a question about just debates in general, because I'm so curious where you think that debates go from here when news organizations see themselves as needing to seem balanced. Like, why even have debates if we're just like neutralizing them, no fact checking, which is really just to please the fact averse among us?
I feel like there's two questions in there. Mm-hmm. I think one is, what is the role of moderators in the debate? How much fact checking should they do? And I don't agree that having moderators who step in and do fact checking improves a debate because, look, we've been through 3. I do not think Donald Trump won that first debate or lost that second debate. I don't believe what we watched unfold last night was really that impacted by the moderators. When the candidates check each other, I think that is better for the people watching at home than when moderators step in and try to kind of adjudicate the facts on the fly. Like, look, we saw what came out of that Trump-Harris debate. I think it was incredibly fair moderating, but Donald Trump has spent weeks saying it was 3-on-1. I think like a little bit of an idea has taken hold that the moderators were more unfair to him than they were to Kamala Harris. Do I think that helps people? Do you think that's good coming out of the debate? I don't. It's probably better if they seem like they're stepping back and letting the candidates fight it out, and then we rely on our candidate to fact check Donald Trump or the Republican in real time. What is the purpose of a debate, right? Like, is this the best way to decide between two human beings? Quick recall, scoring points, making viral moments? Like, no, of course not. This is a stupid way to choose somebody to run Medicare and the military, like incredibly stupid. But if that's what we're going to do, I don't know that the moderator stepping in more is like a way to make it better.
I think I just like it because I personally find it satisfying.
Yeah, no, right. I get it. I agree. But like that moment, like JD Vance, I think enjoyed his microphone being shut off. I think liberals on Twitter and JD Vance enjoyed the microphones being turned off the most. And I think that probably says something about how we watch debates versus how undecided or less engaged people watch a debate.
Right.
I did think JD Vance looked as if he was really enjoying himself. Whereas you could tell that this is not Tim Walz's natural environment. He's obviously great in donut shops and he's great at big rallies, but he's not great in that environment.
JD Vance was like born to be a debater. He lies easily, he is shameless, and he's like a poster. He likes to post, he's like a blogger. Yeah. And he has been, since he wrote Hillbilly LG, he has been talking to media. He's very well versed in doing interviews and sparring with reporters, sparring with opponents. And so I was not surprised that he did well and knew that he was going to have to, be on his best behavior. Tim Walz said something, it was in a CNN story before the debate where he said, I'm a teacher and I teach my students to answer the question. And as a teacher, you learn to answer the question. And that's not really what a debate is. It's more of a performance, which reminded me of what Barack Obama would always say about debates and complain about when we were prepping him for a debate. And he wasn't a great debater either, just because that's not his strength, because there's an artifice to debating and television debating that I think you really have to you really have to be cut out for. And JD Vance is, and I kind of figured Tim Walz wasn't.
It's so funny you should mention Barack Obama, because his first debate with Mitt Romney was so shocking for people because they'd never seen him in an environment like that where he didn't appear to be completely in control. And then obviously the second debate was much better, but that was a shocking debate, the first one. He just seemed very tired and unable to play that game. As you say, it's a performance.
Yeah, he just didn't want to be there. He had been president for 4 years. And when you're president for 4 years, you're not used to being challenged all the time on a debate stage like that. But also, he thought, they're going to ask questions about policy and I'm just going to give answers.
I will say, like, we're a little bit inured to just how much worse and dumber debates have gotten in like the Donald Trump era. You go back and look, like, people were, after that first Biden-Trump debate, people were like, well, Reagan had a bad night in 1984. Then you go watch the Reagan debate, he's like Cicero. I bet if you go look at, if you go back to that terrible Obama debate from 2012, I bet it. I did. It's fucking fine.
Oh no, I watched it. I watched it either before the Biden debate or before the Harris debate, and that first answer, I was still screaming.
Yeah,
at the
it's
screen.
It's bad. Yeah, obviously not his best, but I think it gets held up a little too high.
So you just mentioned Biden. What does he do for the rest of the campaign now? What should he be doing? Should he just sit it out? I mean, what does the next month hold, do you think, for us?
I think he should be president, and he's got plenty on his plate between the Middle East, and now we have a dock workers strike and everything else that's going on in the country. And I think the best thing he can do for Kamala Harris and for the country and for the party is to just continue being president, support her where he can. But I don't imagine that Joe Biden, like, barnstorming the country with Kamala Harris or without her, is necessarily going to help the campaign.
I don't think Joe Biden could barnstorm at this point.
No, I just think, like, you have him, make sure there's not any kind of like runners or rugs that could easily catch between
Oh God.
the bedroom and the situation room, and just have him go back and forth. I think no step in tubs,
No stairs, no slopes.
No lips on that shower, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Let's talk about podcasting a little bit, because Joanna and I are launching this big new endeavor. And of course, you are just OG podcasters with an incredible partnership. Do you have any advice for us in terms of just barnstorming the world of, as we're talking about barnstorming the world of podcasting?
Yeah, what should we be doing? Should we be fighting? Should we be drinking? What should we do?
The more you can narrow the space between how the two of you would be in a conversation with no microphones on and no cameras on, and how you're going to be during your podcast, the better. It works when people think they are just hearing a conversation between friends and they're overhearing a conversation between friends. And that goes for the guests that you have on as well. I think the worst episodes we've done, or at least when we were starting to, it's when we're over-prepared, too scripted, when we have guests on, especially politicians are like this, where it sounds like they're just repeating talking points, and like that just doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
And so I think you got to be as loose as possible.
Can you ever really get people off their talking points? I find it to be a very difficult mission.
It's so hard.
And you feel yourself in it and you just start sweating, but also slightly falling asleep.
You can't make someone be not a politician when they are a politician. I do think, like, this is, by the way, you see this with all kinds of public figures. I think more often than not, people can be pulled into a more honest conversation than they can be pushed into a more honest conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, you look at Donald.
What does that mean? How do we do that? How do we pull them?
If you look at, say, like Donald Trump, like, his most revealing and terrible and damning answers have tended to come in safer environments or off softball questions, as opposed to more adversarial questions. I think, like, when we've had people on and we kind of we try to, like, we're going to be tough guy and interview people, I think sometimes that leads to the worst results. But, like, if you can just sort of hang out with somebody and make them feel at ease, suddenly they feel a little bit looser and a little bit more comfortable. And maybe they go a little further because their guard's a little bit further down.
Yeah. And so, sometimes if you know how they're going to answer a question in advance because they have answered it before that way, and this, again, especially happens with politicians, if in your question you can sort of give them the answer that you can already recite the answer that they're going to give you back, then they have nowhere else to go. And then sometimes they actually say something interesting.
Right. Trick them.
If you interview them for 2 hours, also, you can wear them down, and then they just get tired and they lose track of their thoughts.
which is our plan with you guys. Yeah, we're going to be here in 4 hours' time. We're still going to be asking. What should we be asking you?
What should we at? Now we're doing both sides of the interview?
Yeah, that's right.
I do think that, like, you know, if you listen to like Joe Rogan will have people on for hours and then one clip will go viral after. And that comes after a very long and detailed conversation, right? Like, I do think people get comfortable in those long conversations.
Yeah.
Who's the person that you just felt like was a total waste of time to have on the pod? Who would you never have back?
Oh, well, that's a long list. No, that's such an important question. And I would say one thing you learn from doing this for 8 years is, nice try.
8 years. Wow. It's 8 years. That's insane.
That's wild.
I remember you coming in when you were starting this and I was dying to invest because I knew it was going to be good. And I was telling Sam, the company I was at then when you came in, I rushed in and I said, we should absolutely invest in these guys and Crooked Media. And they said, we would never invest in a company called Crooked Media. And I went, no, it's a joke. It's a joke. And they were like, we will never invest in a company called Crooked Media. So that's my story about you guys.
We finally tricked someone. So
yeah,
no, it's very exciting what you're building. Really exciting. And who you still haven't told me who you wouldn't have back.
That's right.
You did dodge that one.
I think there's a shorter list of politicians we enjoy talking to because they are sort of less afraid of just being themselves. We interviewed each of the candidates in 2020 who was running in the Democratic nomination, and that's like a long list. Yeah, we think back on that, it was just like, oh, Warren and Pete and Biden, but there's like
I'm sitting here talking to Bill de Blasio for an hour.
Oh my God.
An hour you will never get back.
I spent a month with Bill de Blasio 1 hour.
Yeah.
Just started to sweat thinking about that.
Yeah, some of those folks that dropped out early, and we sat there for like 45 minutes to an hour interviewing them, and that's a lot.
I mean, Sam, you've done boring interviews.
Yeah.
Oh, I have. Not with you, though.
Not with us.
Not with us.
No, not with you. No. And I watched your episode of Survivor, and I thought you were excellent.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're good at it. When you're excellent.
John and the kids.
Unbelievable.
Lovett. Talk us through the moment when you realized you weren't going to stay on Survivor.
Oh, well, I would say it was when Jeff Probst read my name aloud.
Okay. Oh.
I knew that I was in trouble because somebody on my tribe had a meltdown and then kind of turned on me in front of Jeff Probst and all 18 people on the island. And so I knew I was in trouble. And once that happened, I tried everything I could to dig out of it, but I wasn't caught off guard by being voted out. I think they just were choosing between two people, one of whom was no longer a threat. And that really kind of killed me. But it was very fun. It's a very strange experience, right? Like if I told you, Joanna, open up your calendar, go to March, everybody's going to see you be embarrassed on television. That's a weird thing to put in your Google Calendar. It's like a weird thing to have. Like this is going to air and it's going to be, but like I enjoyed it and I actually have like no regrets about it. My disappointment was not going home first because of how people reacted. Actually, the reaction was really great. It was fun. I was having a good time being out there and it was like a silly, crazy thing to do. And I was glad I got to do it.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was the best gift I've ever given Jon Favreau.
Oh my God.
That's what you said.
The moment I knew things were going south was when they were all introducing themselves and Lovett's like, I used to be a speechwriter and now I host a podcast. It's called Pod Save America. Have some of you heard of it? And you hear some people just going, maybe. I think so.
They had heard of it. They had heard of it.
So good. It was so
Show business is glorious.
Do you get paid for it? And do you get paid per how long episode you stay for? So if you stay for 4 episodes, you get paid more, or is it like Dancing with the Stars, which I think is a flat fee?
No, Dancing with the I know because I just got asked to do it, and I said no to it.
You said no to Dancing with the Stars.
You get more money the longer you stay.
Oh, you do? So you're incentivized to stay.
Yes.
So, John, how much did you get for it?
I would say enough for a really nice weekend getaway.
Great.
A weekend getaway in America or weekend getaway in South America or Europe?
I think it depends on the season. But not a lot.
You did get a vacation in Fiji.
I basically,
That's good.
I missed 3 dinners, But I did spend a month in Fiji. So that was really the fun. Like, I also like had this great experience of like, when you get voted out first, you're alone. And then one by one, all these people get voted out. And then you kind of hang out with them at this basically kind of like rundown resort in Fiji. And so that was really what I did. I read books. I played ping pong with people, and I had no internet, no nothing. I just literally I literally just read physical books and kind of thought about thought about my life. Thought about my choices.
I can't believe that you could spend a month without the internet.
Wild.
It was very good for me, I think.
I mean, mentally, what happened to you?
So I think like my attention span healed. It really did.
Nice.
Like it did heal. And like I was able to just sit and read. Like days felt a little bit shorter because you could just sit for a while and just read for an hour or two without feeling like you're jittery. You stop reaching for your phone. You stop missing the news. You also realize how much news you're paying attention to day to day that you completely forget about. And don't need to know. And don't ever need to know.
Right.
I will say though, when I turned my phone back on, like the algorithm, it seemed like TikTok thought of me as a person who had like been a junkie but got sober, and they were like a drug dealer outside of school. Like, wow. Oh, you think you can stay away from this? We saved you the weirdest content for your brain till you got back. That's right. This is a story about pooping and real estate.
Wow. You thought that this spin room was a political discussion, but it was actually just cover for us to talk about your Survivor experience.
And you made me feel comfortable. And that's what happened.
That's what happens.
I have one question before we go. I know you guys were fantastic speechwriters for President Obama. Is it possible, do you think, to write a speech for President Trump?
Yeah, for sure. We have now watched Trump speeches, as I'm sure you guys have, for 9 years. I could write a Donald Trump speech in my sleep.
Absolutely.
And then take a shower afterwards.
But do you think he would be able to deliver it? I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
No. He delivered. You can tell his style now, right? He has the speech. He's got the prompters. He's reading it. Sometimes he's surprised by what he reads because he clearly hasn't read it before. And then he sort of goes off on a tangent and he does like the Trump show, and then he comes back onto and then he seems more bored on the prompter. He's definitely bored by the written speeches. And they try to write in his style, but
but his writers are a lot of blood and soil from his speech writing.
Well,
team.
And he's 80 years old. He's not coming up with anything new at this point.
No,
he's old. He's just playing the hits, right? He hasn't come up with new material in a while.
Okay, and if you were betting people, what would you say happens on November the 5th?
Oof, we're not.
We're not. No betting. No
Don't
betting.
take that bait.
I'd rather be us than them.
Yeah,
it's an extremely close race, but I think that in an extremely close race, energy, enthusiasm, that matters on the margins, and this is going to be a margin of error race. So
wow. All right. Thanks again. This was amazing. Oh, I thought that was so good.
They are such fun.
They are so much fun. That was great. And you know what? That actually was, I thought, great advice. We keep talking to people who give us great advice, but relating to each other as we normally relate to each other, which I do think that we do. It's something that I would not think to do or be aware of, but I think we're kind of doing it anyway.
Yeah, and I now literally waking up in the morning thinking, what does Sam think? I'm getting feedback.
Most people wake up that way, so it's understandable. Once you know me, you love me. Irresistible.
Irresistible. I loved hearing about his experience too on Survivor.
Yes. Delicious. I wish he would have stayed longer.
He should have. It would have been fun if he'd stayed longer.
If you've been listening to the podcast lately, you've probably heard us talk about Five9, the revolutionary customer experience platform that is redefining how customers interact with brands. Everyone wants to be treated well and have a great customer experience, and in today's world, that is a huge competitive advantage. But most companies see it as just checking a box. They're missing out on incredible brand building and revenue generating opportunities that are everywhere across businesses. All of those consumer touch points that you don't think of, those are the moments your brand can use to create an advantage.
Five9's intelligent AI-driven platform lets you make all those moments better and totally seamless. So if you want to build a powerful brand that people love, check out five9.com/beast. Thank you for listening, and please like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend you want to feel smarter than or to argue with.
And if you're doing that, you might as well send it to all your weird uncles too.
So tag us on all your favorite social platforms. Tell us what you think. We'd love your feedback, and we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of the Daily Beast podcast.
As my personal muse once said, be best.
But here we say, be beast.
We do. See you next time.